Welcome to my channel. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. I don't even know how to start this, but I'll try my best to tell you what happened. It's been a while, but I can still feel it, like it just happened yesterday. Okay, here goes. So, this was back when I was living in Minnesota. You know how it is. Cold winters, small Hmong communities, everyone knowing everyone else's business. We had this little house at the edge of town, right near the woods. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was home. I lived there with my older brother Kong and our cousin Ma. It was a tight setup, but we managed. Anyway, this happened one night when we had some people over. It was one of those small get-togethers. Nothing wild, just some food, music, and laughter. You know how it goes, right? The kind of thing where people just show up because they hear someone's cooking. Well, that night, Kong decided to make his famous BBQ chicken, and word spread fast. Before we knew it, we had like 10 people crammed into our little house. Some were playing cards, others were just hanging out, and Kong was in the kitchen grilling up a storm. Ma and I were sitting on the couch, joking around with some friends, when the door suddenly creaked open. Now, you gotta understand, our door didn't open easily. It was one of those old wooden doors that stuck unless you gave it a good push. But this time, it just opened. No knock, no sound, nothing. Just this slow, creaky swing. Everyone turned to look at the door, and there was this guy standing there. He wasn't anyone we knew. He was tall, skinny, and his clothes were old. Like, really old. He didn't say anything, just stood there staring at us. His eyes, man, they were weird. Like they were too dark, like there was no light in them. I don't know how else to explain it, but something about him just felt off. Kong, being the friendly guy he is, walked over and said, "Hey man, come on in. You hungry?" That's just how Kong was. Always welcoming, never questioning. The guy nodded, real slow, and stepped inside. No shoes, no sound, just quiet. He sat down at the table like he belonged there. Ma nudged me and whispered, "Do you know him?" I shook my head. None of us did, but no one wanted to be rude, so we just let him be. Kong served him some food, and the guy ate, but it was weird. He didn't use his hands much. He just leaned down close to the plate and kind of nibbled. I don't know, it was strange. As the night went on, things started feeling weird. People stopped laughing as much, and the music seemed quieter. I looked around and noticed the guy wasn't at the table anymore. He was just gone. No one saw him leave, no one heard the door open, nothing. Ma and I decided to check the house, just to make sure he didn't wander off somewhere. We looked in the kitchen, the bedrooms, even the bathroom. Nothing. It was like he vanished. Kong came up behind us and said, "He's probably outside. Don't worry about it." But Ma wasn't convinced. He said he felt something weird, like someone was still watching us. The rest of the night was just off. People left early, which was unusual for our group. Usually, we'd stay up until the sun came up, but by midnight, the house was empty except for us three. We cleaned up and called it a night, but I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing things, soft footsteps, whispering. I told myself it was just my imagination. Around 3 a.m., I heard the front door creak open again. I froze. My room was closest to the living room, and that night I didn't close my bedroom door, so I could see the front door from my bed. And there he was, standing in the doorway again. Same clothes, same dark eyes, just staring at me. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. He raised his hand and pointed at me, then at the corner of the room. My eyes followed his finger, and that's when I saw her. A woman, crouched in the corner, her face hidden behind long, messy hair. She was rocking back and forth, whispering something I couldn't understand. My heart was pounding so loud I thought it would burst. I squeezed my eyes shut and prayed, begging for whatever this was to go away. When I opened my eyes, they were gone. Just like that. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I told Kong and Ma what happened. Ma's face went pale, and he said, "I had a dream about a woman last night. She was in my room, just sitting there watching me." Kong tried to brush it off, saying we were just freaking ourselves out, but I could tell he was scared too. Things got worse after that. Every night we'd hear footsteps in the house, doors opening and closing, and soft whispers we couldn't trace. One night, Ma woke up screaming, saying the woman was sitting at the foot of his bed, staring at him with empty eyes. We finally decided to do something about it. Ma called his dad, who was a shaman. He came over with his ceremonial tools, bells, incense, all that stuff. He walked around the house, chanting and sprinkling water in every corner. When he got to the living room, he stopped and said, "Something happened here, something bad." He told us that the man who came to our house wasn't a man at all. He was a spirit, and the woman was tied to him somehow. Maybe she was someone he hurt, or maybe she was following him for revenge. Either way, they weren't going to leave on their own. Ma's dad performed a ritual to send them away. He said prayers, rang his bells, and burned paper money to guide the spirits back to wherever they came from. The whole time, the house felt different, like something was fighting back. But after a while, the air felt lighter and the whispers stopped. We didn't see or hear anything after that, but we never stayed in that house again. We moved out a month later, and I swear I'll never forget that night. Sometimes, when I'm alone, I think about that guy and the woman in the corner. I wonder what their story was, what happened to them. But honestly, I don't want to know. Story 2. There's this story my cousin B told me. Yeah, B's full of it most of the time, but this one felt too real. He said it happened to his friend, and you know how that goes. But the way he told it, man. I'm just saying, I didn't sleep right for a week after hearing it. So, this happened somewhere in Minnesota. You know how a lot of Hmong families ended up there, right? Cold as heck. But they got those good schools and jobs. So a lot of us stayed. Anyway, B's friend, let's call him Chai, had just moved into this old apartment building with his family. It wasn't much, just one of those plain brown brick buildings with a ton of units crammed together. Nothing fancy. Chai's family got a place on the second floor. It was small, but it worked. 2 bedrooms, a tiny kitchen in this long hallway with a wall on one side and a window on the other. The window overlooked the parking lot, and at night, all you could see were the streetlights casting these long, creepy shadows. The thing about this building, though, was that it had a reputation. The old folks used to talk about it being built on a spot where bad stuff happened. Nobody knew exactly what, but you know how Hmong stories are. Maybe it was a battlefield, or maybe it was a place where someone did something they shouldn't have. All Chai knew was that people avoided talking about it. At first, everything was fine. His parents worked late shifts, so it was usually just Chai and his little sister Mai at home after school. They'd do homework, watch TV, the usual stuff. But after a couple of weeks, weird things started happening. Chai told B about the first time it happened. He said it was late, maybe around 11, and he was lying in bed scrolling through his phone. Mai was asleep in her room, and the apartment was quiet, except for the faint sound of the fridge. That's when he heard it. A whisper. At first he thought it was just the wind. You know how old buildings are. Everything creaks and groans like it's alive. But this wasn't a creak or a groan. It was a voice. Faint, like it was coming from the hallway. Chai. He froze. His first thought was Mai, but when he got up and peeked into her room, she was out cold, snoring like a baby. He shrugged it off, thinking maybe he was hearing things, but it didn't stop. Every few nights, the whisper would come back. Always the same voice. Soft and drawn out. It never said much, just his name, over and over. Chai. B said Chai didn't tell his parents about it right away because, Asian parents, they just tell him to pray more or stop staying up so late. But after a while, it got worse. One night, Chai and Mai were sitting on the couch watching TV when they heard it again. This time, it wasn't just a whisper. It was louder. Chai! Mai! Mai jumped up, clutching the blanket to her chest. Did you hear that? She asked. Chai nodded, his face pale. They turned off the TV and sat there in silence, listening. The voice called out again, coming from the hallway. But when they went to check, it was empty. The next day, Chai asked one of the neighbors if they'd ever heard anything weird. The guy just laughed and said, "Oh, you're in that apartment, huh? Yeah, people don't stay there long." Apparently, the wall in their hallway wasn't just a wall. Back in the day, there had been a door there, leading to a small room. Nobody knew what the room was used for, but it had been sealed off for years. Some people said it was because of zoning issues, or something boring like that, but others said it was because of what happened there. Chai's parents didn't believe him at first when he told them about the whispers, but then, one night, his mom heard it too. She was in the kitchen washing dishes when the voice called out, "Chai! Mai!" She dropped the plate she was holding, shattering it on the floor. The next day, she called a shaman. The shaman came, an old man with a face like leather. He didn't say much, just walked around the apartment with a bundle of herbs, chanting softly under his breath. When he got to the hallway, he stopped. "This wall," he said, pointing to it. "There's something here." Chai's mom asked what he meant, but he just shook his head. "Don't mess with it," he warned. "Leave it alone. But you need to do something about her." "Her?" Chai asked. The shaman didn't answer. Instead, he set up a small altar in the living room and performed a ceremony. He burned incense, rang a bell, and chanted prayers that filled the apartment with a heavy, almost suffocating energy. When it was over, the shaman told them to leave an offering by the wall: rice, chicken, and some fruits. "She's lost," he said. "She needs to find her way home." For a while, it seemed to work. The whispers stopped, and the apartment felt lighter, like whatever had been hanging over them was finally gone. But then, about a month later, Chai woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of crying. It was soft at first, barely audible, but as he sat up in bed, it grew louder, echoing through the apartment. He followed the sound to the hallway, where he saw something that made his blood run cold. The wall wasn't just a wall anymore, it was a door, and standing in front of it was the shadowy figure of a woman. Her long black hair hung over her face, and her shoulders shook as she sobbed. Chai wanted to run, but he couldn't move. It was like his feet were glued to the floor. The woman turned to him, and even though her face was hidden, he could feel her eyes boring into him. "Help me," she whispered. The next thing Chai knew, he was waking up on the floor. The door was gone, and the hallway was just a hallway again. The family moved out a week later. Chai never told anyone else what he saw that night, but he swore to B that it was real. "She's still there," he said. "She's trapped, and she's waiting for someone to help her." I don't know, man. Maybe B made the whole thing up, but I'm telling you, if I ever end up in Minnesota, I'm staying far away from old apartment buildings. Thank you for listening to this video. I'll see you in the next one.